Chapter 1296, Return Journey Preparation. As far as the name coined for her kind was concerned, the feline woman's kind was named Totoro or Chinchilla. However, it was not the kind of rodent-like creature on Earth. She was an offspring of the dragon and feline races and possessed both dragon and feline bloodlines. As far as Tang Xiao knew, the number of dragon felines in the entire immortal world was absolutely not over 3 digits. Back in the past, he also had the dragon feline through some kind of immortal fate and grace. Kitty gently grabbed Tang Xiao's arm with a pleading look and said, "Master, can you also buy Raging Lion Daybreak? He saved me once and kept saving me in convict arena prison intentionally." Raging Lion Daybreak? Tang Xiao nodded at her plea and said, "Follow me." Along the way, Tang Xiao observed the remaining hundreds of deathmatch fighters and read their information before he finally came to a bearded lion man, with a golden hairy body. The lion man didn't show any menacing gestures towards Tang Xiao, but showing a smile instead when he saw Kitty beside Tang Xiao. 1.2 million immortal crystals? He's a profound immortal? After reading his records, Tang Xiao slightly frowned but then calmly said, "Wait here. I'll take you away too." Having said that, he took the feline girl back to the auditorium. As a new match was about to begin, Tang Xiao took out 100,000 immortal crystals and gave them to the feline girl and said, "Bet for the win of that hulking guy." Okay. Kitty left for a while and soon returned to Tang Xiao and handed a token worth 100,000 immortal crystals. "You hold it," Tang Xiao calmly said. The match ended quickly as it started with the Hulk ending up the winner. In the next 2 days, Tang Xiao gambled for a total of 6 times. The initial 100,000 immortal crystals kept doubling until the number reached 6.4 million immortal crystals. This should be enough. Tang Xiao took a deep breath and then returned to the iron cage where the lion man was caged. He then paid 1.2 million immortal crystals to the manager of the convict arena prison to buy the lion man. As the old man manager left, Tang Xiao took another look at the lion man and said with all seriousness, "I'm giving you 2 choices now. First, I give your life token back and you can leave if you wish so. Second, you follow me later, but I must make it clear to you that I'll have your life token. Make your choice here and now." The lion man knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice, "I'd only meet my death here sooner or later if you didn't save. My life is yours since you're my benefactor. I'd like to leave now, but I'll pay back 10 or even 100 times for the grace you gave me in the future." Tang Xiao gave him his life token and lightly said, "Every person has his own will and purpose. You chose to leave, so I won't force you to follow me. Further, I don't need you to pay back." The lion man spoke no more and just received his life token. He saluted Tang Xiao and then left quickly. He didn't ask why Tang Xiao saved him, but he could faintly guess that it might be the request to that kitty. In short, he vowed to remember this benevolence in his heart and would look for this benefactor after completing an important matter he must deal with. Watching his back disappear into the distance, Tang Xiao then shifted to Kitty. Fate brought them to meet here and Tang Xiao decided to leave this place. After all, he had gained a lot of things this time and had no plan to gain more immortal crystals in this place anymore. He didn't dare to guarantee 100% that he could win every time gambled. No matter how minuscule such a chance may occur, just one mistake was enough to lose all he had gained. Quickly after, Tang Xiao brought Kitty to the Aurelian Artificer sect. After the pair entered the lava cave abode, Tang Xiao asked, "Kitty, back when I left in the immortal world, you weren't yet able to shape-shift. I know some of the things that happened in the immortal world later on, but I only know a few things. Tell me what you've been through." Kitty replied, "Master, I heard that you failed your divine tribulation. Afterward, your 2 friends occupied our residence and even sent a large number of experts to kill, burn, and plunder it. I didn't have the ability to shapeshift before, so I avoided the disaster. I wandered about everywhere for 800 years, but then encountered an accident. I was captured and my life source and soul essence were absorbed before I was sent to the city's convict arena prison. Due to the awakening of my dragon bloodline, I was then sent to the match and defeated my opponents many times to survive. Later on, a certain immortal from the convict arena prison saw that I could advance to be an immortal rank magical beast. Afterward, I kept fighting in the convict arenas and matches. Oftentimes I thought I was going to die, but I never thought I would be able to survive in the end. I have always been thinking I'd run into you again. A cold glint flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes, and he asked in a deep voice, "Who caught you and absorbed your life source and soul essence?" "He's a voracious wolf, a despicable and shameless profound immortal," answered Kitty. "Where is he?" "I don't know." Kitty shook her head and said, "I've been in the convict arena prison for more than 300 years and must go through hundreds of death matches. Later on, I heard he likes to capture some weak people and sells them to the convict arena prison in private. He seems to have a deep relationship with one of convict arena prison's executives." "You don't know about his background at all?" Tang Xiu asked again. Kitty shook her head again. But she suddenly nodded and said, "He seems to be a disciple of a big sect, master. But I don't know the name of his section." Tang Xiu patted her shoulder and lightly said, "If I can return to the peak one day, I'll definitely assign some people to find him and give him to you at his last breath." "Thank you, master." Kitty hugged Tang Xiu after saying this and planted her small beautiful face on Tang Xiu's chest. At this moment, she felt that this chest was the warmest and safest place in the whole immortal world. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something and curiously asked, "Master, where's Madam?" "I've asked around about Madam many times, but I've never been able to obtain any news about her." Tang Xiu's expression turned cold and he indifferently replied, "She is no longer your madam as she no longer has the slightest relationship with me anymore. Remember, kill her directly if she provokes you when you meet her in the future. You don't need to bother her if she doesn't." "Why?" asked Kitty with a confused face. "Don't ask why. Just remember what I said," said Tang Xiu faintly. Afterward, Tang Xiu was unwilling to chat with Kitty again. After taking out the demon god Soul Devourer cauldron, he began to devote himself to refining. Since all the refining materials needed to make the versicolor coral garb had been readied, Tang Xiu refined a total of 20 high-grade versicolor coral garbs in one go. A few months later, when Tang Xiu left the lava cave abode, he saw Gu Yan sitting cross-legged outside. After questioning her, he then learned that the 4 ancestors of the Aurelian Artificer sect and Gu Yan had completely exterminated the Clearwater clan. Only one of the 4 ancestors of this sect was injured, whereas the rest came out unscathed. "By the way, I didn't expect the Clearwater clan to have so much wealth, master. After counting all the wealth of this clan, all of them can be exchanged for 230,000 immortal crystals. However, I gave all of them to the Aurelian Artificer sect as per your instruction in exchange for the weapons equal to the value of the wealth," concluded Gu Yan with a smile. "Our great Tang Empire is lacking all kinds of cultivation resources as of now, especially weapons." Tang Xiu nodded and continued, "We'll need an astronomical amount of resources to support us since we're going to recruit troops and prepare for war in the future. I went to the Immortal's Solicit City when you headed to the Clearwater clan and gained quite a lot from the trip."
Ah,
"Right. Have you seen Kitty yet?"
yeah,
"I met her when you were refining in seclusion." Gu Yan nodded and said, "But do you really trust her?"
yeah,
"She's actually like you since I raised her too." Tang Xiu nodded and said, "When she was just born, her parents gave her to me. They had to deal with something and knew they were going to die because of it. It's just she hasn't yet been able to transform back when I was plotted." "You know her parents?" Gu Yan replied with a curious face.
yeah,
"Her parents and I were good friends. They saved my life once." Tang Xiu forced a bitter smile and said, "However, they had their destiny and fate." Even if I have tried to help them several times, I was still ultimately unable to change their death in the end. Gu Yan nodded and unhurriedly said, I'm aware that you have your own ideas, Master. But I really hope you don't take any action that can expose your identity again. Our enemies are really too powerful. We can only reveal our true identity when our strength is as formidable as theirs. No worries. Tang Xiu patted her shoulder and said, the 1-year deadline is getting closer, and I think the Aurelian Artificer sect is likely unable to complete our orders. We're staying here for another 3 months to wait for all the things to be prepared first. I need those 4 elders of this sect to help refine a certain immortal artifact. Which type of immortal artifact is it? Gu Yan curiously asked. A heavenly abode type artifact, Tang Xiu answered. Gu Yan was startled inwardly and said, but Master, you're going to need a lot of precious materials to make a heavenly abode type artifact. Further, the larger the space inside it, the bigger the spending you must prepare. Well, 5 million immortal crystals should be enough for it, though, Tang Xiu replied. Gu Yan quickly recalled what Kitty told her. She then immediately nodded and said with a smile, well, you won so many immortal crystals from the convict arena prison, enough to refine such a heavenly abode type artifact. I'm quite proficient in refining myself, so I'm going to help refine it too. Great. Tang Xiu slightly smiled and nodded. Time quickly passed by and it was nearly a year and a half since Tang Xiu and Gu Yan left the Great Tang Empire's warriors. After collaborating with the 4 ancestors of the Aurelian Artificer sect, Tang Xiu and Gu Yan finally completed the refining of the Heavenly Abode type artifact. The Heavenly Abode type artifact was shaped like a ship and was large enough to accommodate 1 million people. The inner part was partitioned into 10 areas. Although the cultivation speed when cultivating inside it paled in comparison to some heavenly blessed lands, the speed couldn't be set as low as before given the massive number of immortal stones and crystals being provided. Let's depart and set off on our journey. Finally, after the Aurelian Artificer sect had finished refining all the weapons ordered by Tang Xiu went to see Dark North Immortal and the 4 sect's ancestors and bade them farewell. Given the distance between the Aurelian Artificer sect and the camp of the Great Tang Empire's legions of soldiers, the journey would still take months even though Gu Yan led them with her golden immortal stage cultivation. Chapter 1297 En route to the immortal world. The River Sky outer domain had countless walks of life and races, yet there were innumerable desolate planets in its vast starry sky. Time itself didn't have much meaning in the immortal world because for many powerful immortals, they could even spend years, decades, or centuries in seclusion. A whole year and a half passed by. When Tang Xiu and Gu Yan came back to the desolate planet, the pair exchanged glances and smiled to each other tacitly after seeing the stretch of humble camps set up there. Open. Tang Xiu opened the array covering the planet and appeared in the camp. Whoosh. 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 9 figures flickered and moved fast, 3 of whom appeared in front of Tang Xiu and looked happy after seeing Tang Xiu and Gu Yan. Lord. Zhongling came floating and slightly nodded in salute with a beaming face. Anything happened here in the last 1.5 years? Asked Tang Xiu. Some immortals pass by nearby stars occasionally, but they didn't find us here, so nothing happened, Zhongling said. Everybody has been fully immersed in cultivation these days, and many of them have advanced. Tang Xiu nodded with a smile at her report. His gaze shifted as many more figures came from the distance to gather at his position. He immediately floated to the air up to 10 meters high and loudly spoke with a smile, everyone, we shall gather here again tomorrow. Ouyang Lulu moved lightning fast to Tang Xiu's front. After hugging him happily, she inquisitively asked curiously, where shall we go next, then? We gotta pick our pace to the Immortal Lyceum. Tang Xiu smilingly answered. Is the Immortal Lyceum quite far from here? Asked Ouyang Lulu again. If our trip goes smoothly, we should be able to get there within 4 years, but the time will stretch should we encounter some unforeseen events on the way there, Tang Xiu replied. 4 years? After hearing the answer, Ouyang Lulu was not the only one shocked, but also the rest of the Great Tang Empire people. Only now could they imagine how vast this immortal world was. Whoosh! Gu Xiaoxue instantly appeared before Tang Xiu. Suppressing her excited feeling, she asked, Grand Master, may I know who this person is? Tang Xiu introduced Kitty to everyone with a smiling face. Afterward, he pointed to Zhongling's group of 9 and said, You should be able to determine who these good sisters of yours are. Their appearances may have changed, but their souls and auras haven't. Kitty came to the 9 females led by Zhongling and burst into tears after recognizing their auras and souls. Her master, Tang Xiu, took good care of her in the past, but it was Zhongling's group who took care of her the most. Gu Xiaoxue approached Tang Xiu and hesitantly asked, Grand Master, may I ask whether you or Master have had a good harvest after the trip? You see, the consumption of our cultivation resource is much faster than expected. Tang Xiu couldn't help but burst into laughter. How impatient! You're indeed the Minister of Finance, aren't you? Well, it's just natural that we got a big harvest. With that said, he waved his hand and a stream of roughly 2 million immortal stones and tens of immortal crystals quickly flew out, and appeared in front of every member of the Great Tang Empire. This is the currency in the immortal world, which is also a resource all the cultivators and immortals alike can use. These immortal stones contain immortal force which you can absorb and refine to strengthen your cultivation. You can also use them to buy things you like here. After speaking, he sent everyone immortal crystals and continued, As for this one, this is an immortal crystal, a grade higher resource than an immortal stone. 1 immortal crystal equals to 100 immortal stones, and it's enough for your uses for some time. Each of you can have 2 for now. But later on, you can obtain your annual allotment for immortal stones and crystals for which the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Political Affairs will work together to formulate the allotment for these items annually. The difference in amount will depend on your positions and status. Only when you become stronger will you receive more and more salaries in the future. All members of the Great Tang Empire looked excited. They had already learned some common knowledge in the immortal world back when they were still on Earth. Aside from cultivation in the last 1 year and a half, they also learned more about the immortal world from Zhongling's group of 9. And to them, the immortal stones and crystals were precious treasures. Shortly after, Tang Xiu took out 3 million more immortal crystals and handed them to Gu Xiaoxue, saying, As the Minister of Finance, you are to manage these immortal crystals. But keep in mind to tell me should you face any financial problems in the future. Gu Xiaoxue used her spiritual sense to check the ring and an especially bright smile covered her face. She nodded repeatedly and said, I'll keep that in mind, Grand Master. Tang Xiu then glanced at all directions with a smiling face and asked aloud, For your information, these immortal stones and crystals are the most basic things. We also brought many other things. With that said, he took out more than 200,000 immortal swords, 200,000 set of armors from his interspatial ring and sent each person the set of a sword and an armor, engraved with 5-starred red, the flag of the Great Tang Empire. Finally, he handed over a large number of other types of weapons, elixirs, talismans, array discs, and various cultivation resources to Gu Xiaoxue. So many. Despite having managed a colossal number of cultivation resources, Gu Xiaoxue felt like the number was worlds apart compared to the cultivation resources Tang Xiu just brought back. What shocked her the most was the 500,000 interspatial rings. A day later. Aside from Tang Xiu and Gu Yan, the rest had entered the heavenly abode immortal artifact brought by the pair. Since Tang Xiu had asked around about some things in the previous trip, he knew where to find the long-distance spatial teleportation array. 2 months later. As Tang Xiu and Gu Yan landed on the highest peak of a continent, a gigantic spatial teleportation array came to their sight while hundreds of cultivators and immortals were waiting near it. A golden immortal dressed in silver combat armor and boots led 500 immortals to guard around the spatial transmission array. Coldness and a killing aura radiated from them, and they brazenly killed any unruly individuals who tried to provoke them. Tang Xiu himself had inquired and learned that the immortal soldiers stationed in this spatial teleportation array belonged to the Iron Stallion Empire, the only empire in this continent. The said empire was rumored to have a lot of powerhouses, while its emperor was a perfected golden immortal expert. Pay the fare. The silver-armored general came to Tang Xiu and shot a cold look before he asked in a heavy voice, 1 immortal crystal for each person in the heavenly abode artifact, and 10 immortal crystals per person outside. Tang Xiu gave him over 200,000 immortal crystals and indifferently stated something that made the silver-armored general dumbfounded. I know the rules, but you're not qualified to carry out any inspection. These are all the immortal crystals for the said number. Not one piece less. Please cooperate, fellow immortal, the silver-armored general creased his brows and asked after he came to his senses. Gu Yan came forward and let out her aura. Then, said lightly, are you sure you want to insist on inspecting us? The general's breath skipped a beat and he immediately let out a bitter smile. We're under orders, fellow immortals. Off you go then since it's not convenient for you. He was not stupid. He knew that the other party had too many people. Who knew how many powerhouses were in that heavenly abode artifact? He didn't dare to risk offending them given his own combat force. In case there was anyone with fearsome power among them and he successfully angered them, and they moved to kill him and his company, that would be far too great of a loss than any gain. Further, these people were leaving this star domain. Regardless of who they were, it was already a great thing they wouldn't be a threat to the Iron Stallion Empire, to begin with. Activate the spatial teleportation array in advance. The silver-armored general turned around and ordered aloud. Tang Xiu and Gu Yan exchanged similar glances and entered the array. They were teleported away as a group as hundreds of cultivators and immortals came flocking. Ares Immortal Domain. Celestial Aqua Immortal Domain. Aquamarine Immortal Domain. Senkadori Immortal Domain. After 2 years on the road, they also leaped through space using 5 spatial teleportation arrays before finally leading all the members of the Great Tang Empire to the Scarlet Lotus Immortal Domain. Master, I feel like having some Scarlet Lotus flow porridge. The moment they stepped into the spatial teleportation array, a childish smile appeared on Gu Yan's face while she intimately held Tang Xiu's arm. Past memories rewound in Tang Xiu's mind. The 10-year-old Gu Yan took him to the Scarlet Lotus Immortal Domain and had the Scarlet Lotus flow porridge in Hessen Castle. The taste was not only unforgettable to her, but also to Tang Xiu himself. That delicacy was genuinely delicious. Tang Xiu let out a light smile and said, all right, let's go there since you want to eat. Anyhow, if my memory serves me correctly, the spatial teleportation array of the Scarlet Lotus Domain leads to the Ivy Immortal Domain. That place isn't far from Hessen Castle. Not to mention that our supply is dwindling, so we gotta buy some more. Well, we may get some chances to get rich too, Gu Yan smilingly replied. Tang Xiu couldn't help but burst into laughter. He never wanted to rob others of their wealth if it was not a last resort, though he didn't mind such an action if those he robbed were wicked people, to begin with. Anyway, how about having some more experts to protect us, Yan? Huh? What do you mean, Master? Asked Gu Yan with a surprise. The Scarlet Lotus Domain is quite chaotic, I'm sure you've witnessed it back when I took you here. It won't be easy for the current us to ensure our safety given our present strength. That's why I've been thinking of buying some deathmatch gladiators. Tang Xiu slightly smiled. Gu Yan quickly understood and replied, if you really plan to buy some, then take some golden immortal gladiators. I don't think we'd have a problem getting a colossal amount of immortal crystals given our abilities either. It's best that we buy hundreds of golden immortal gladiators by then, so we can ensure our safety. Chapter 1298, Who says master and disciple can't be lovers? the Scarlet Lotus Immortal Domain. The virtually endless starry sky had too many stars and floating landmass to count, with each having its own sects of cultivators, whereas some sects of immortals could only be found in large landmasses. The Hessen Castle was located in one of the large stars in the immortal world. Boasting a vast area, it took decades for one to fly from one border to the other, even for a perfected golden immortal. Moon-gazing Monarch City was the largest city located between the four largest immortal sects, and the place where Hessen Castle was located. However, the fearsomely powerful master of Hessen Castle, a perfected golden immortal, had been living in the moon-gazing Monarch City all the time. Thus, the gigantic city was coined after the title of this perfected golden immortal. The crowded streets were nearly 100 meters wide and seemingly had no end in length. Both sides of the streets were full of stores, too many to count, many of which were of various skyscraper-like architecture styles. Even immortals would inevitably feel how small they were when they were in this ageless and vicissitude-filled ancient city. The Stargazing Pavilion. A restaurant touted as the best restaurant in the whole city and with the glorious and longest history to boot. Its 6 towers that surrounded the one in the middle were like planets revolving around its star, reflecting rainbow-colored lights due to its colored ceramic glaze, giving it a majestic and magnificent feel. Tang Xiu and Gu Yan stood outside the tens of meters high stargazing pavilion's gate. Watching the diners coming in and going out gave them a feeling as though they were going back in time. Millenniums had passed by in a flash, just like a snap of fingers. Feeling like an eternity, yet feeling like it just happened yesterday. The only unfortunate thing was that the 4 celestial immortal guards standing on both sides of the entrance were no longer the familiar faces from before. Let's head in. Tang Xiu sighed inwardly and waltzed inside while holding Gu Yan's hand. After walking along a kilometer-long corridor and coming to its end, he tilted up his head to look at the arc-shaped pathway separating both sides and then walked straight ahead. The Stargazing Pavilion had strict rules. Only those who were at least golden immortals could go straight ahead to dine at the center tower. The diners who had yet to reach the golden immortal stage or weren't being accompanied by one would be stopped outside even before they reached the tower in the center. Once again, it was all about social class and status, a situation where one encountered often in the immortal world. Yet, it was one's strength that secured the most powerful ID card, earning respect and reverence everywhere. Please stay back, honorable guest. Just as Tang Xiu and Gu Yan came outside the entrance to the middle tower, a golden immortal with 18 late-stage celestial immortals behind him cast a cold stare and stopped them. Tang Xiu frowned and said, "Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't golden immortals entitled to enjoy dining and staying in this tower? Does this mean the Stargazing Pavilion has upped the limit entry that even a golden immortal now has no qualification to dine here?" The elderly golden immortal apologized. "The custom of our Stargazing Pavilion hasn't changed for tens of millennials, but we do have an exception every millennium." "And, what is this exception, exactly?" asked Tang Xiu. "These 2 fellow immortals should be foreigners." "Yes," replied the elderly golden immortal. "It's because everyone in Hessen Castle knows that Madame Empyrean Pole always comes and stays here for a year every millennium. And this time is exactly when our Stargazing Pavilion closed to the public, as we will only entertain Madame Empyrean Pole." Tang Xiu and Gu Yan exchanged helpless glances. They had been here before, so they naturally knew that Madame Empyrean Pole was the most powerful perfected golden immortal, and the true master of the entire Hessen Castle. Back in the past, Tang Xiu was the immortal world supreme whose strength had reached the apex. Thus, he could ignore Madame Empyrean Pole. However, he did have to look up to her when he was still at the perfected golden immortal stage. In the entire immortal world, Madame Empyrean Pole was not a supremacy stage powerhouse, yet many supremes were wary of her. Even all those so-called great perfected golden immortals would pale at the mention of her name. "We'll take our leave, then." Tang Xiu sighed inwardly and turned around to leave while holding Gu Yan's hand. However, the moment he just turned around, he realized that a beautiful woman in white was floating in the back. Wearing a phoenix corona cap to cover her coiling hair, her eyes were bright like stars. Both Guyan and Tang Xiu weren't able to sense her presence even though she was obviously standing in front of them. It felt like what appeared before their eyes were just a ghost. Truly an expert, at least at the perfected golden immortal stage. Tang Xiu tensed up inwardly. He then paced a step forward instantly while covering Guyan. As he cupped his fists, he respectfully said, "Great Tang meets Senior. We'll immediately take our leave if we're blocking Senior's path." The gorgeous woman's eyes lingered on Tang Xiu's hand that held Guyan's. Only after Tang Xiu spoke did she slowly raise her head with a complicated look in her eyes. Then, she spoke, "You don't need to be afraid of me. I just sensed his aura, so I came out to see you." Tang Xiu was stunned, and vigilance instantly filled his eyes. He must keep his identity in absolute secrecy, yet he also knew a lot of people were familiar with him, too many, even. Before he returned to the supremacy stage, he was absolutely unwilling to reveal his identity. "May I ask who this Senior is?" "I sense celestial pole's aura from you," the gorgeous woman replied. "That oldster celestial pole?" Tang Xiu blinked. All of a sudden, he suddenly realized that Celestial Pole Oldster and Madame Empyrean Pole did have similar titles. Did they have some kind of special relationship or something? Could this Empyrean Pole be Celestial Pole's mistress? The vigilance in Tang Xiu's heart slowly subsided and his expression turned serene. "I do have some relationship with Celestial Pole Old Man, Senior. When you say that you sense his aura from me, some of the things I've taken from his celestial pole realm must have his aura and emitted it." Madame Empyrean Pole's expression changed and she hurriedly asked, "You've been to the celestial pole realm? Where's he? Tell me, where is he?" While blurting out, her aura blasted out. Although it was only an aura released by her emotional fluctuations, it still made Tang Xiu ghastly pale and caused blood to come from his throat. "Master." A cold light gleamed in Guyan's eyes as she instantly pulled Tang Xiu behind her. She had not the slightest fear towards Madame Empyrean Pole. Although she was perfectly aware the present her was not her match, she used to be a perfected golden immortal herself, after all. Back then, she was just half a step away to the supremacy stage. Not even slightly inferior to Madame Empyrean Pole. Tang Xiu patted her shoulder and pulled her behind him again, saying, "I'm all right." Madame Empyrean Pole stepped back and contained her own aura immediately. A restorative pill suddenly appeared in her palm as she handed it to Tang Xiu and said, "Are you related as master and disciple?" Tang Xiu was just about to nod when Guyan suddenly blurted, "We may be master and disciple, but we're also lovers." Madame Empyrean Pole stared at the pair and a bit of bitterness suddenly appeared on her face. She tilted up her head to the sky and muttered to herself, "Who says a master and disciple cannot be lovers? Celestial Pole. Second brat, you're really far inferior." Immediately after, she lowered her head and shifted to the pair again. "Can you tell me where Celestial Pole is? I've waited for thousands for him since he promised that he'd come back to dine at the Scarlet Lotus Flow porridge with me in this tower." A complicated look flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes. He shook his head and replied, "He has died." Madame Empyrean Pole's figure trembled and her eyes turned sharp as she fiercely retorted, "Nonsense. You're lying. Celestial Pole is my direct disciple, I surely know what he's capable of. He must have not fallen." Tang Xiu took out an astrolabe and then marked the coordinates of Celestial Pole realm on it before handing it to Madame Empyrean Pole. Afterward, he said, "This is the coordinate of the Celestial Pole realm. You had better go see it for yourself." Madame Empyrean Pole took a glance at the astrolabe. She faintly realized that Tang Xiu was not lying since that Celestial Pole oldster did tell the place he was about to go back then. "You guys." A complicated look gleamed in her eyes yet again. Then, she took out an interspatial ring and threw it to Tang Xiu, saying, "Regardless of if what you're telling is true or not, I want to thank you since you do have given me his information. Take all the crystal essences inside as a reward. With that said, her figure flickered and vanished. Tang Xiu immediately sent his spiritual sense into the ring and was shocked. There were 1,000,000 crystal essences in the ring. It must be noted that 1 immortal crystal equals to 100 immortal stones, whereas 1 crystal essence equals to 100 immortal crystals. Having 1,000,000 crystal essences meant that he had 100 million immortal crystals. This is a shit-ton wealth. I'm hella rich. Tang Xiu shifted to the position where Madame Empyrean Pole just stood, and suddenly, he was glad he came here, else getting so many crystal essences by himself would have been a very difficult ordeal to carry out. Quickly, Tang Xiu turned to the elderly golden immortal and calmly asked, "Well, Madame Empyrean Pole just left, so can we dine now?" The elderly golden immortal shot a complicated look at Tang Xiu and nodded without a word. Then, he said, "I naturally have no reason to reject the honorable guests since Madame Empyrean Pole has left. Fellow immortal, I'd also like to exempt you from all expenses in my stargazing pavilion." Tang Xiu and Gu Yan looked at each other and slightly smiled immediately. It was well known that stargazing pavilion service was very expensive. Even if the two of them only dined here, they would have to dig out 1,000 immortal stones. This elderly golden immortal gave them such service gratis truly was a generous offer. Suddenly, Tang Xiu slightly smiled. "May I ask who you are, sir?" "I'm the supervisor of the stargazing pavilion and have been taking care of it for my master." "Both of you just helped my master, so you are benefactors of our stargazing pavilion," said the elderly golden immortal. "You may eat anything you'd like, but you exempted from paying." "Can I hold you to your words?" asked Tang Xiu smilingly. "No joking." "Absolutely," replied the elderly golden immortal. "Well, then allow me to accept your generosity." Tang Xiu thoughtfully smiled and said, "I happen to have a large bunch of people, so I'm afraid you'll have to spend quite some money." Chapter 1299, Pigging Out. The expression of the elderly golden immortal shifted. He suddenly had a bad hunch and hurriedly asked, "Are you perhaps carrying a heavenly abode artifact or something?" "That's right. We're carrying such a heavenly abode artifact, indeed," Tang Xiu replied with a nod. "I thought we had to spend quite a lot visiting this place, but well, I never thought fellow immortal would be so generously straightforward to exempt all of us for some free meals though. Well, frequenting the stargazing pavilion all these years does feel worthwhile now." The old golden immortal looked a bit helpless. He did have the intention to exempt Tang Xiu and Gu Yan, yet he didn't expect for them to be carrying a heavenly abode artifact. The stargazing pavilion would likely lose a fortune if there were too many people in it. "Anyhow, please lead the day, immortal friend," Tang Xiu smilingly said. "Also, aside from having enough to drink and eat, I think we still need to stay here for 2 days. I'm guessing that Madame Empyrean Pole will come back, and she will definitely look for me." "What does he mean? Her ladyship is going to find him when she comes back?" The elderly golden immortal's expression shifted and he immediately replied, "Please come in, two honorable guests. Blame me for my extravagant boasting, but taking back my words is not an option. Further, I already mentioned that you've helped her ladyship, thus it should be our responsibility to entertain you lavishly." On the 88th floor of the tower. The floor was enough to accommodate hundreds of thousands of diners at the same time. That's why Tang Xiu brought all the great Tang Empire's members out of the heavenly abode artifact. Everyone immediately realized the situation after Tang Xiu's explanation and they immediately anticipated the rumored great dishes of the immortal world. However, the elderly golden immortal's face looked very regretful upon seeing over 200,000 members of the great Tang Empire. It would have been fine had Tang Xiu chosen the other tower. After all, the dishes of the other minarets were much worse than this middle tower. Damn it. It will definitely take at least a year to make up for the loss of having these 200,000 people eat here. I surely would have never boasted so excessively had I known about this earlier. Feeling regretful inwardly, the elderly golden immortal squeezed out a smile and ordered the kitchen to cook the dishes after the orders were done. It was not until he left the tower that he shook his head with a bitter smile. He recalled that he invited them to dine here due to the favor Tang Xiu gave to his master, Madame Empyrean Pole. More so that they accepted his offer since it was free. For the last 2 days, only meals and delicacies filled the heads of the Great Tang Empire's members. To their shock and surprise, however, they found that the specialty dishes actually contained enormous energy and just one bite was much more beneficial than absorbing 10 immortal stones. After the episode of pigging out to their heart's content, Tang Xiu put all of them back in the heavenly abode artifact. Due to having eaten such dishes for 2 full days, nearly all the Great Tang Empire's members below the immortal stage had their cultivation level progress sharply, and all of them advanced a level. Outside the stargazing pavilion, both Tang Xiu and Gu Yan turned back and let out quirky smiles, as the elderly golden immortal standing at the gate wiped off the sweat on his forehead. "What do you think, master? Will that guy slap his own face due to distress?" Gu Yan smirked and said, "Estimating the cost, I think it should be at least in the tens of millions of immortal crystals. Besides, many guys brought the immortal wine they haven't finished drinking to the heavenly abode artifact as well. I'm pretty sure they will keep it and drink it slowly later. The conservative estimation is roughly in the tens of millions, indeed." Such a dignified golden immortal supervisor of the stargazing pavilion wouldn't have sweated so much due to anxiety and pain. "I figure he'll definitely relax after we leave." Tang Xiu chuckled. Gu Yan held Tang Xiu's arm and smilingly said, "Well, to benefit is a chance hard to come by. And I think it's time for us to buy some hatched men. Let's head to the largest convict arena prison in moon-gazing Monarch City, then. We can spend quite a lot since we are no longer short of money." Tang Xiu nodded. Gu Yan's smile was particularly bright. After all, the 1 million immortal crystals given by Madame Empyrean Pole was by no means a small amount. At the very least, it would be enough for them to use it for a long time given their present situation. Moon-gazing Monarch City, convict arena prison. As Tang Xiu and Gu Yan came here, an attendant directly led them to the prison cells for immortals. At this time, a fierce fight was currently being held in the arena with both fighters at the profound immortal stage. "2 distinguished guests, you can call me should you require anything in the convict arena. My name is Light Rain and I guarantee the best service to the greatest of my abilities," said the beautiful attendant smilingly. Tang Xiu slightly nodded at her in response. Then, he shifted his attention to the deathmatch fighters in the cells and read their information. Finally, he spoke, "I want to buy 20 golden immortal gladiators. Tell your supervisor to state the price." Light Rain's expression changed. Her attitude immediately became respectful as she replied, "2 distinguished guests, I'd like to apologize since I need to ask you to please wait for a while. No one has ever bought so many golden immortal gladiators. I'm going to report to my supervisor first and she shall attend to you personally." 15 minutes passed. An alluring and gorgeous belle giving off amorous charm came toward them guided by Light Rain. Her eyes, which looked like drizzling raindrops, quietly observed Tang Xiu and Gu Yan before she said with a smiling face, "I heard the 2 distinguished guests would like to purchase 20 gladiators at Golden Immortal Stage. I wonder if this is true." "That's correct," Tang Xiu replied. "We indeed plan to buy 20 death warriors, each at Golden Immortal Stage. The higher their cultivation level, the stronger they are, the more perfect. I'd like manager to state the price to us." The belle thought for a while and then replied, "We have a total of 209 death warriors at the Golden Immortal Stage here. 29 at the late stage, 62 mid-stage, and the rest are at the early stage. You just mentioned that the higher their cultivation level and the stronger they are the better, yes? Then I can only recommend you the gladiators at the late stage." "The price, please," said Tang Xiu calmly. Based on the market price, every late-stage golden immortal gladiator is worth 8 million immortal crystals. You plan to purchase 20 of them, so the total sum will be 160 million immortal crystals. I can give you a discount of 10 million, so you only need to pay 150 million immortal crystals, and then you can take away these 20 late-stage golden immortal gladiators. Read more chapter on VIPnovel.com. 150 million immortal crystals? Tang Xiu forced a wry smile inwardly. He thought that having 1 million crystal essences should have been enough to buy 20 late-stage golden immortal gladiators, but he didn't expect a late-stage golden immortal gladiator to be so expensive. After taking a deep breath, he said, I feel assured since you have a sufficient number of golden immortal death warriors. Anyhow, I'd like to have some fun and enjoy myself here first before we carry on the business. You can go tend to your business and leave this Miss Light Rain to accompany us, so we can contact you when we're done playing. The bell smilingly replied upon hearing it, if so, then I shall refrain from disturbing you. Little Rain, do entertain our two distinguished guests well, else you can expect me to throw you into the cell and be a gladiator yourself. Light Rain's face drastically changed and she immediately replied with an extremely fearful expression, I'll absolutely give my best to serve these two distinguished guests, manager. Tang Xiu faintly smiled and watched the bell leave. Then, he said, anyway, let's head to the Colosseum to watch the fight. Only coming here to buy some gladiators without doing anything else would be too boring. With that said, he handed an interspatial ring with 2 million immortal crystals to Light Rain and then lightly said, help me exchange it for some chips. Acknowledged. Light Rain slightly nodded and respectfully replied. She took the interspatial ring and then left. The current fight inside the convict arena was very fierce and intense, but Tang Xiu himself didn't pay much attention to it. It was because near the position where he was sitting, a big-eared and pugnacious-looking fat middle-aged man was hugging two voluptuous women while teasing them. His voice and laughter were so loud that several gamblers around him frowned and glared at him. The big-eared and big-headed middle-aged fatty seemed to notice it. He glared back at them and angrily shouted, what the fuck are you looking at? Watch out for this fatty gouging out your eyeballs, dickheads. Damn, some ragtag shits dare to provoke this master fatty? You really got some fucking balls. You're dead. A hot-tempered black-robed oldster glared at the middle-aged fatty with his triangular eyes as he suddenly got up and shouted. Yet, he didn't attack because he was afraid of the convict arena's rules, which stated that one must pay a 1 million immortal crystals penalty for each murder here, else it would be seen as a provocation to the entire convict arena. Should it happen, the violator would be endlessly chased by countless powerhouses from the convict arena. No one knew how powerful the convict arena was. It was an existence that had been around since hundreds of thousands of years ago, and nobody knew or even could ask around who the master behind the convict arena was either. The alluring woman in the middle-aged fatty's left arm turned into a streak of light and instantly appeared in front of the black-robed hot-tempered oldster. A green smoke spewed out of her sleeve all of a sudden as a sharp short sword flashed and instantly pierced the old man's throat. In the next moment, the voluptuous woman's 10 fingernails began to grow crazily. Right as her nails were 2+ centimeters in length, she moved lightning fast and her 10 sharp nails ripped the man's robe and destroyed his immortal defensive artifact, while tearing his immortal body into dozens of bloody pieces of flesh. The unfolding scene was so shocking that the several middle-aged gamblers who glared at the middle-aged fatty looked horrified and panicked. All of them backed away and flashed to the distance. That poor robed old man just expelled out his aura a moment ago. He was a profound immortal, yet it only took an instant for that middle-aged fatty's woman to kill him, a display that scared and sent a chill down their spines. Tang Xiu observed the scene calmly while silently guessing the cultivation level of the female immortal. After a short time, he inferred that the female immortal had at least a mid-stage or late-stage golden immortal cultivation, as it would have been otherwise impossible for her to slay a profound immortal in an instant. After the alluring woman finished the killing, she turned back into her previous amorous woman style again, drilling her way into the middle-aged fatty's embrace after returning. It was like she was not the brutal murderer who just carried out such a cruel killing a moment ago. Chapter 1300, Inquisitiveness Can Be Dangerous. Tang Xiu's accumulated experience was so rich that it had long made him realize that there were too many powerful hidden dragons and crouching tigers to count in the immortal world. Only by keeping a low profile could they keep their lives longer. On the contrary, they could also act just like that robed old man should they want to die quickly. The impulse and anger of a moment were enough to eventually lead to his own cruel death. Now, this is interesting. A smile appeared on the corner of Tang Xiu's mouth and climbed up to his face. He noticed that the gamblers around him had already moved far away, leaving him and Gu Yan still near the middle-aged fatty's group of 3. The middle-aged fatty also realized that Tang Xiu and Gu Yan were the only ones who hadn't left. He only took a glance at them a few times before and knew how this pair of man and woman didn't show any reaction, nor harbored hostility toward him. Hence, he observed the couple again and saw their unfazed and serene expressions, as though they did not see anything disturbing, a finding that surprised the middle-aged fatty a bit. A remarkable bunch, huh? Be it their stature or bearing, they are absolutely superb. I can even tell her appearance is definitely top-notch. The middle-aged fatty's sharp eyes glanced at Gu Yan's hand that coiled around Tang Xiu's arm. Immediately after, he laughed aloud and said, I admire your extraordinariness, lil bro, care to sit with me? Tang Xiu slightly creased his brows and indifferently smiled.
Nah.
My legs just went a bit limp after getting scared by that #1 expert of Hessen Castle. I stroll around to forget it so as not to make myself a spectacle here. But you can come over yourself if you want to have some fun, though. A gleam flashed in the eyes of the middle-aged fatty. He then patted the shoulders of the 2 voluptuous women and floated to Tang Xiu and Gu Yan. After taking a seat next to Tang Xiu, he lightly chuckled and said, well, did you just bump into that Empyrean pole lady, lil bro? Right, that pitiful lady always comes to the stargazing pavilion every millennium, hoping to see the return of that celestial pole oldster. It's no secret here. A surprised look gleamed in Tang Xiu's eyes, and he replied with a smile, it was nothing but a flash meet, though. Still, I gotta maintain a fearful appearance in front of such a powerhouse. But you're quite an interesting person yourself, mister. Are you familiar with them as master and disciple? The middle-aged fatty burst into laughter and replied, me familiar with them? More than familiar. You're so damn interesting, buddy. You truly are. It's been like eons ago since I last saw a youngster as interesting as you. Care to share with me where you come from? Just a trivial loose cultivator who's drifting from place to place and seeing the world as his home, nothing more, Tang Xiu calmly said. Do you think I'm too tender or something? The middle-aged fatty couldn't help but laugh. You look like a youngling to me, indeed. Youngling? Tang Xiu and Gu Yan exchanged glances and both smiled a bit. As Tang Xiu shifted back, he nodded and smilingly said, I'm indeed a youngling, so young that it's kinda inevitable to act brazenly and frivolously. Well, you can call me Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, or just Great Tang. What about you, mister? Ugh. Great Tang Heavenly Emperor? The middle-aged fatty couldn't help but burst into laughter and then shook his head with a smile. You really don't know what humility and modesty are, do you, little guy? Not even I dare to call myself the Great Emperor or Heavenly Emperor. Anyhow, I feel you're a very interesting person, Great Tang lil bro, so let's play a game. I'll tell you mine if you win, but you gotta let me see the appearance of the bell next to you if I win. Deal? The smile on Tang Xiu's face slightly receded and he calmly stated, you know, that celestial pole oldster told me personally that curiosity will kill the cat, so let's not mention such a matter anymore if you want to make friends. But if you do harbor malice, we'll keep you in the game happily. The middle-aged fatty stared blankly and froze for a moment before slightly frowning. To the best of his knowledge, Celestial Pole Oldster had been missing for thousands of years, yet the young man in front of him actually said that the guy told him that in person? Is there something wrong? Could it be that this young man has just met that Celestial Pole Oldster recently? The middle-aged fatty ruminated for a while and was about to speak when his expression slightly shifted. He suddenly recalled Tang Xiu asking him if he felt that the guy was young. Could it be, is he, a reincarnation of a super-powerful supreme cultivator or something? That's right. These two didn't even phase when my woman killed that robed old profound immortal. What was more, no matter how he placed himself as someone from a higher stature, the young man was neither humble, servile, nor overreacting. He just maintained his extraordinary bearing, which no youngster was capable of pulling off before him. The middle-aged fatty shot a deep look at Tang Xiu and said, I'll pass the request I made just now, but you just need to answer me another question. Damn, sure enough. You really got curiosity overwhelmed, didn't you? Tang Xiu lightly chuckled and said, all right, I'm all ears. Ask your question. What's the relationship between you two? Asked the middle-aged fatty. She's my disciple, Tang Xiu answered. And also his woman, Gu Yan added while holding Tang Xiu's hand tightly and expelled out her golden immortal aura in a flash moment. The middle-aged fatty took a deep breath and immediately realized how on the mark his guess was. The young man in front of him may very likely be the reincarnation of a super-powerful supreme cultivator. Otherwise, how would he have a golden immortal disciple when he just obviously advanced to the immortal stage? More so that his golden immortal disciple was just a hair away from breaking through to the perfected golden immortal stage. The middle-aged fatty's mouth arched and he lightly smiled. No matter what your past identity was, you're now just a common small immortal in my eyes. The name is Nine Nether Swordmeister, Great Tang Lil Bro. You can just call me Nine Nether Big Bro. Nine Nether Swordmeister? Beside Tang Xiu, a cold gleam flashed in Gu Yan's eyes. She knew who this Nine Nether Swordmeister was, a man who was almost as famous as her as well as a similarly fearsome lunatic perfected golden immortal expert. Both of them had long been regarded as fearsome and scary devils by countless people. Nine Nether Swordmeister of the Burial Tomb sect? A complicated look flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes before he nodded and said, our friendship can be witnessed in the future, but I'm now too poor that I can't even take out some immortal crystals to buy a few golden immortal gladiators. So, for the first meeting gift, I shall meet 3 requests of yours in the future. I'll never refuse your request so long as it is within my capability. 3 requests? Light gleamed in Nine Nether Swordmeister's eyes. Looking at Tang Xiu meaningfully, he then nodded and said, fulfilling 3 requests for the first meeting gift is something heavy, Tang Lil Bro. We're friends, and the first meeting gift is something reciprocal. How many golden immortal gladiators do you need, exactly, Lil Bro? Let me pay for them. Tang Xiu laughed aloud and raised his thumb up, praising. So rich and lavish, Nine Nether Big Bro. You know, 20 golden immortal gladiators cost 150 immortal crystals, so your gift is more than the 1 million crystal essences gifted by Madame Empyrean Pole, as well as those lavish dishes worth millions of immortal crystals provided by the Stargazing Pavilion before. But I'll accept since we're friends. Huh? Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised and asked in amazement, since when did the Empyrean Pole lady become so generous? No idea. Not familiar with her at all, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Nine Nether Swordmeister burst into laughter yet again and shot an admiring look at Tang Xiu. You know, you really are interesting, Tang Lil Bro. Many people are eager to climb relationships with such a secretive Empyrean lady powerhouse, yet you just blatantly tell me that you're not familiar with her, huh? That's so damn interesting. I've always been honest with my friends, you know. Tang Xiu chuckled. Bwahaha, Nine Nether laughed aloud. Honesty between friends, huh? I fucking love that. Anyway, Tang lil bro, you gave me 3 requests, so I'm cashing one of them now. I'm gonna gamble big in about 8 months, so I wanna ask your help to win that game. What do you think? An enemy of yours? Tang Shou asked. Yep. Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded and said, we got a feud, and the Empyrean Pole Lady mediated us to resolve the grudges. Hence, the big gamble was finally settled and the feud will end no matter who wins. But I can get quite the enormous benefit if I win, and my life force will be greatly damaged if I lose. Alright, but I don't dare to give you a 100% guarantee, mind you. I can only do my best on that, Tang Shou nodded. No worries. Nine Nether Swordmeister said, I won't pin all my hopes on you alone. Just keep me a company to provide me some advice and suggestions. It's not like I can lay the blame on you even if I lose. At the moment, several convict arena guards came to the group of people and the director narrowed his eyes and stared at Nine Nether Swordmeister. Please pay a fine of 1 million immortal crystals if you know the custom of our convict arena, sir. Someone from our side will explain it to you if you are unaware. Nine Nether Swordmeister flicked his finger and an interspatial ring appeared in the hand of the convict arena director. As the other party checked it with his immortal sense, he nodded and stated, everyone in our convict arena is our distinguished guest, so I hope you don't go too far. Just gamble with your enemies and defeat them all if you don't feel happy. It's far more interesting than killing them. You won't need to pay 1 million immortal crystals even if you kill them. You just need to go to the lobby and apply for a death fight contract and you can definitely reap the life of your enemy. Nine Nether Swordmeister waved and said, I already knew that. Just scram. The old golden immortal indifferently smiled in response, but he shot a friendly smile to Tang Shou before leading the guards away. Anyway, you know that guy, Tang lil bro? Nine Nether Swordmeister asked. We got casually acquainted since I talked about buying 20 golden immortal gladiators before, replied Tang Shou with a smile. What are you buying that many golden immortal gladiators for, though? Nine Nether Swordmeister asked, do you want them to be your protectors or something? Nine Nether Big Bro, don't you think I can be spared of some troublesome things in the future if I have a bunch of henchmen at my side? Tang Shou replied with a smile, pity that I'm too poor now. Else I would have bought tens or even hundreds of millions of golden immortal death warriors, to eventually form the golden immortal army. In the future, I only need to wave my hand or point my finger whenever I'm unhappy and my golden immortal men will straightly crush and flatten my enemies, no? Cough, cough. Nine Nether Swordmeister couldn't heave even one breath and nearly choked upon hearing it. The suffocating feeling turned his face red and his expression was bizarre. After a while, he gave a thumbs up to Tang Shou and exclaimed, damn, Tang lil bro. You're really a damn wonderful marvel. You can even think about such a grand idea. This bro of yours truly admires you.